Welcome to Meridian. Today, you're going to hear a story that, honestly, sounds more like a blockbuster movie than a business case.
It really does. Ambition, betrayal, unbelievably sums of money.
And a heist involving, get this, a quadrillion Vietnamese dong. We're talking about a scandal that didn't just shake a company, it rocked an entire country.
Absolutely.
So picture this. Tring Mulan starts out selling cosmetics. Seems pretty normal, right?
Humble beginnings.
Then she builds this huge real estate empire, Van Tien Phat. But here's the twist. She doesn't just borrow big money from a bank.
No, she goes one step further.
She buys one, buys Saigon Commercial Bank, SCB, and turns it into her own private ATM.
Literally.
Over 44 billion US dollars just disappears, funneled through this insane network of ghost companies.
1,000 of them, reportedly. Just shells.
And the regulators, the people supposed to stop this, bribed. One top official admitted taking $5.2 million in cash.
Delivered in styrofoam boxes, unbelievably.
Which leads to chaos. A massive bank run, people terrified they'll lose everything. The state has to step in with, well, shock and awe.
A huge bailout. Yeah.
And the final punch, a death sentence. For the tycoon, Tring Mulan. For economic crimes.
Unprecedented, really, on this scale.
So the big question we're tackling today, was this a necessary, even brutal cleanup of a deeply corrupt system?
Or perhaps a calculated, chilling power play showing the state's ultimate authority.
We're going right into the heart of the Van Tien Phat SCB collapse in Vietnam. Stick around, because this story has layers, and its echoes. They're being felt globally.
What's truly fascinating, I think, is how one single person could manipulate the entire financial system for a decade.
Full decade.
Yeah, it wasn't just, finding a loophole. This was systemic capture. It just shows how power and money can completely erase the lines.
Okay, let's break this down. At the center of it all, Tring Mulan. Born Tring Mui, 1956. Starts small, cosmetics.
Right, but then Vietnam opens up its economy, EMO, in the late 80s, early 90s.
And in 91, she founds Van Tien Phat, VTP. And she pivots fast into real estate.
And not just any real estate. Prime locations in Ho Chi Minh City, the so-called Golden Land. She dominated those acquisitions.
She really did build an empire.
And crucially, it was a family empire. That structure was key. Kept things secret, total control.
Who was involved?
Her husband, Chulip Ke, a Hong Kong businessman, and her niece, Trang Huy Van, they held critical roles across the VTP network.
So a tight inner circle.
Exactly. That let her run this multi-billion-dollar show with almost zero outside eyes on it. A fortress, really.
Okay, but even a fortress needs fuel. VTP needed cash. Lots of it.
Constantly. Real estate development is incredibly capital-intensive.
So her solution wasn't just finding investors or loans. It was, well, Audacious doesn't even cover it.
No, it was next level. Control a bank.
Control a bank. Her target. Saigon Commercial Bank, SCB. Formed in 2012 from a merger the state itself had pushed for.
Now, Vietnamese law is pretty strict. You can't just own a massive chunk of a bank as an individual. There are limits.
So how did she get around that?
She used what's called a nominee structure. Basically, a complex web of people and companies acting as proxies for her.
Like frontmen.
Essentially, yes. 73 different individuals and entities were used. And through them, by 2018, she secretly controlled over 91.5% of SCB.
91.5%. So the law was just bypassed.
Completely. The court later didn't mince words. They called her the de facto owner. It looked public, but it was hers.
And once she had that control.
She put her people in charge, loyalists in all the key spots, and she paid them extremely well.
How well?
We're talking salaries between 200 million and 500 million Vietnamese dong per month.
Wow. What's that in US dollars?
Roughly 8,000 to 20,000 US dollars a month.
Huge money there.
So loyalty was bought and paid for. SCB wasn't a bank anymore.
It was her personal financial tool, as the court put it. Her private piggy bank. A hijacked institution.
Okay, so she controls the bank. Now, how did she get the money out? This is where the quadrillion dong figure comes in, right? Exactly. The mechanism she built was, frankly, staggering. It was like an assembly line for fraud.
An assembly line?
Yeah. First step, create ghost companies. Over 1,000 of them. Nested within her VTP group.
1,000 companies with no actual business.
None. Just paper entities. Their sole purpose was to act as borrowers, fictitious borrowers.
Why?
To get around lending limits meant for single entities, and crucially, to hide the fact that she was the ultimate beneficiary of all these loans.
It's industrial scale deception.
Completely. Think about the paperwork involved. fabricating loan documents on that scale.
So how much are we talking about in total?
Between 2012 and 2022, SCB issued over 2,500 loans to these ghost companies. The total. Over 1 quadrillion Vietnamese dong.
1 quadrillion. It's hard to even picture that number. What is that in US dollars?
Over 44 billion US dollars.
44 billion. And that represented
93% of SCB's entire loan portfolio. Basically, almost all the money the bank lent out went to her network.
unbelievable. And the profit was backward, you said.
Totally backward. Money went out first, based purely on lands orders. The loan documents, the justifications, all that stuff. It was created after the fact to legalize the disbursement.
Just rubber stamping fraud.
And it didn't stop there. They corrupted external appraisal companies too.
How?
Pressured them, bribed them, whatever it took. They got these companies to massively inflate the value of the collateral backing the loans, sometimes tenfold.
So worthless land was suddenly worth millions.
Pretty much. Or properties that weren't even finished yet secured huge loans. Sometimes they'd even swap out collateral later for something even less valuable. It was a shell game.
And she streamlined the process inside the bank, too.
Oh, yeah. Set up 3 specialized lending units operating right out of SCB headquarters. These units bypassed all the normal checks and balances.
Fast lanes for fraud.
Exactly. In just 2 years, those units processed nearly 400 loans, accounting for almost 40% of the total debt owed by her network. It was ruthlessly efficient theft.
But even this machine couldn't keep up forever, right? You mentioned the bank was hemorrhaging by 2018.
Right. Even siphoning off billions eventually creates problems.
Yeah.
SCB was bleeding cash. So Lan needed another source of funds.
So she opened a second front.
Precisely. Phase 2 begins. She turns to the corporate bond market. This wasn't just about embezzling from the bank anymore.
How was it then?
This was about direct public fraud and setting up channels for serious international money laundering.
How did the bond scheme work?
They created 25 different bond codes, supposedly issued by VTP-affiliated companies, like one called an ALM.
But these weren't real bonds.
No, they were essentially fictitious. Worthless paper,
Yep.
not backed by any genuine assets or viable projects.
And who bought them?
This is the tragic part. Over 35,800 ordinary individual investors, everyday people, they are completely deceived.
How much did they lose?
Over 30.8 trillion Vietnamese dong. That's about 1.3 billion US dollars. Just gone. Stolen from regular citizens.
So it escalated from bank fraud to defrauding the public directly.
Absolutely. And with all this illicit cash pouring in from the bank and the bonds, the next challenge was laundering it.
How much are we talking?
The estimates are around 445 trillion dong laundered. That's roughly 18.7 billion US dollars.
Wow. And how did they move it?
A whirlwind of activity. Huge cash withdrawals from SCB, complex transfers between dozens, maybe hundreds, of shell companies, designed specifically to make the money untraceable, like smoke.
And it went international, too.
Yes, that was another novel aspect. She managed to illegally move an estimated 4.5 billion US dollars across borders.
How?
Using more fictitious contracts, this time with ghost companies supposedly based abroad.
Yeah.
And SCB executives, they just wave these transfers through, even with obvious red flags in the paperwork.
So they were attacking international payment systems, too.
There's a direct assault on the integrity of those channels, yes. A whole new level of financial crime for the region.
So this massive, complex operation runs for a decade. How did it finally unravel?
Like many of these things, the end came swiftly. October 2022. Rumors started swirling about Lan's imminent arrest.
And that triggered panic.
Massive panic. A classic bank run. Thousands of people lined up outside SCB branches, desperate to get their savings out. You saw the pictures. Just queues stretching for blocks.
Terrifying for those people.
Absolutely terrifying. Their life savings potentially vanishing. It was a complete collapse of public trust happening in real time.
So the state had to step in.
Immediately.
Yeah.
The State Bank of Vietnam, the central bank, intervened decisively. First, they guaranteed all deposits to stop the run. Then they put SCB under special control.
What did that involve?
They essentially took over management, brought in experienced bankers from major state-owned banks, and crucially, they injected a huge amount of liquidity to keep it afloat.
How much?
It wasn't disclosed initially, but court documents later revealed it was around 597 trillion dong. That's about 24 billion US dollars.
$24 billion just to stabilize one bank. That shows the scale.
It's almost unbelievable. It highlights just how massive the hole was and how systemic the risk could become.
And then came the legal response?
Unprecedented speed and scope. Phase 1 of the trial involved 86 defendants.
86. Who were they?
Lon herself, key family members like her husband and niece, the entire senior leadership of SCB practically, and crucially, the corrupted government officials.
What were the charges?
The big ones were embezzlement, bribery, and violating banking regulations.
And the verdict, that came relatively quickly too, didn't it?
Astonishingly quickly for such a complex case. April 11th, 2024. Trung Mi Lan received the death sentence for embezzlement.
Death for embezzlement. That's extreme.
It sent shockwaves, absolutely. Plus 20 years for bribery and another 20 for the banking violations. Cumulatively a death sentence.
What about the others?
4 key accomplices got life sentences. Her niece received 17 years, her husband got 9 years. Then phase 2 started, focusing on the bond fraud and money laundering.
And she got another life sentence for that.
Yes, the state was clearly sending a message.
Which brings us back to that core question. This swift, severe prosecution, culminating in a death sentence for a top tycoon. It feels like a political statement, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
To me, it screams state in control, punishing wrongdoing with an iron fist, showing that the old ways where elites maybe felt untouchable are over. It feels like they had to do this to restore any kind of faith.
I see that argument. Projecting strength, decisiveness, zero tolerance, the ultimate deterrent.
Right.
But hang on, let's look at the timeline. A prosecution involving hundreds of defendants, intricate financial forensics tracing billions. Pulling that together so quickly.
Yeah, it's fast.
It suggests immense pressure from the top. And while it projects control, it also raises questions for me. What does it say about the health of the system if you need such extreme measures? If fear is the primary tool against corruption.
You think it could backfire?
Well, does it build genuine, lasting confidence? Or does it create a chilling effect? Does it deter crime? Or does it also deter legitimate risk-taking and entrepreneurship because people are afraid of falling foul of a system that can react so severely so quickly? I'm not sure it's that clear-cut.
But you mentioned fear. Maybe fear was the only thing left. I mean, you look at the corruption within the system designed to prevent this. That bribe to...
Oh, Tidon, the head of the state bank's inspection team, yeah.
$5.2 million in cash, in styrofoam boxes. If the watchdog chief is taking bribes like that, confidence is already gone, isn't it? This wasn't just Land's genius. The system itself was rotten.
You're right. The regulatory failure is perhaps the most damning part. It was, as you said, industrial-scale regulatory capture.
The entire inspection team took money or gifts?
The entire team, looking into SEB, yes. 15 former officials from the state bank itself, 3 from the government inspectorate, 1 from the state audit office. All convicted. It was systemic.
And didn't someone try to raise the alarm earlier?
Yes. That's another shocking detail. A lower-level team within the state bank had flagged SCB's problems over 70 times between 2016 and 2022.
70 times.
They explicitly recommended stricter supervision. But the senior officials, the ones who were compromised, they just ignored or actively suppressed those warnings.
So the Guardian was actively enabling the crime. Who do you trust after that?
It points to this pervasive issue, sometimes called elite mutual reinforcement. These cozy, almost incestuous relationships between big conglomerates, especially in real estate, and the banks.
Developers controlling banks to fund their own projects.
Exactly. And it wasn't just negligence by regulators. It implies active complicity across a whole ecosystem. Think about the external players.
The appraisal companies.
The valuation firms signing off on inflated assets, yes. And the auditors. Auditors who apparently saw nothing suspicious for a decade. It stretches credulity.
It really does. Which I suppose brings us to the government's broader anti-corruption drive, the blazing furnace.
Right. This case is the most high-profile example of that campaign.
And maybe this is the point. That it's like surgery. Painful, yes. Maybe even brutal. But necessary to cut out the rot, to create a cleaner, more predictable environment where legitimate businesses can actually thrive. Maybe this strong hand is exactly what's needed for real change.
That's certainly the narrative the government is pushing. That this crackdown, however harsh, ultimately strengthens the system and improves the investment climate.
You sound skeptical.
I'm cautious. Can new laws and harsh penalties truly fix a culture where enforcement was the real problem? The rules existed before. They were just ignored or subverted.
So you think it might just be temporary?
Fear can be a powerful deterrent, no doubt. But without building genuinely independent, incorruptible institutions, is it just a purge that might happen again? This goes beyond just finance. It's about the fundamental relationship between the state and private enterprise in Vietnam. Is it based on clear rules or on power and favor.
Okay, let's talk about the fallout. Beyond the bank itself and the prison sentences, what were the immediate economic shocks?
The corporate bond market was hit first, and hard. Remember those 35,000 investors?
Who lost $1.3 billion?
Exactly. Trust in that market just evaporated overnight. It completely seized up.
Has it recovered?
It's slowly coming back, but mostly because banks are issuing bonds to boost their own capital.
Yeah.
Non-financial companies, especially property developers, they're still finding it incredibly difficult.
They're facing a maturity wall, you mentioned.
Yeah, a huge amount of corporate debt is coming due, and refinancing is tough. Banks are wary, the bond market is wary. The long-term damage is that loss of trust, crippling a vital source of funding outside the banking system.
And the real estate sector itself. BTP was huge there.
Massive contagion. Nearly 3,000 properties linked to land and VTP were seized by the state. Landmark projects just stopped dead.
So construction sites went quiet?
All over. And the credit squeeze hit the whole sector. Banks are now much stricter lending to developers. It's put a real brake on the market.
What about foreign investors? Vietnam was riding high on that China plus one wave.
This was definitely a splash of cold water, a jarring wake-up call. It exposed deep systemic risks and the potential for massive corruption that maybe wasn't fully appreciated before.
So more caution from investors now.
Absolutely. Due diligence requirements have gone way up. The perceived cost, complexity, and risk of investing in Vietnam have definitely increased. It's put a dent in that smooth China plus one narrative.
But playing devil's advocate again, look at the state's reaction after the scandal broke. They didn't just prosecute. They pushed through a whole raft of reforms.
They did. There's been a lot of regulatory activity, yes.
Like what? Expanded mandatory audits for big private companies.
Yes. New rules on rotating auditors to prevent cozy relationships, tighter lending criteria, especially for loans to related parties.
Which was central to the VTP case.
Exactly. And stronger oversight in general. They've even proposed boosting penalties for audit violations massively, like 30 times higher, up to $3 million US.
So they're building new guardrails. That sounds like a serious attempt to prevent this happening again, doesn't it? It suggests they want a cleaner market.
The intention might be there, yes. Putting new rules on paper is important. But my core question remains the enforcement gap.
Will the new rules actually be enforced this time?
Precisely. The old rules weren't necessarily bad, they just weren't followed or enforced, especially when powerful people were involved. Is this regulatory reset enough to change that culture, or is it just more paper?
And there are practical problems left over too, right? Like SCB itself.
Huge problems. You've got SCB, essentially a zombie bank, kept alive by the state, but with this multi-billion-dollar black hole in its balance sheet. What's the long-term plan for it?
And all those seized properties.
Nearly 3,000 of them. How does the government sell those off without completely crashing the already fragile real estate market? These are massive, complex challenges with no easy answers. New rules don't solve those overnight.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we're left with these two pretty starkly contrasting ways to look at this whole saga.
It seems so, yeah.
On one hand, you have the view that Vietnam's shock and awe response, the rapid investigation, the mass trials, the death sentence was brutal, yes, but ultimately necessary. A painful but essential cleansing of the system to ensure long-term health and stability. Cutting out the cancer, basically.
The tough medicine argument. Necessary for recovery.
Right. But then there's the other perspective.
That this was less about cleaning house and more about asserting absolute state power. A demonstration that might deter the worth excesses, but could also stifle the economy's dynamism by creating an environment of fear and uncertainty about the rules of the game.
A chilling effect, like you said.
Exactly.
Right?
The real test, I think, isn't just the new regulations. It's the consistent, impartial application of those rules, driven by political will and genuine integrity within the institutions themselves. That's much harder to measure.
It's an incredible story, though, a real reminder of how blurred the lines can get in high finance between ambition, innovation, risk-taking, and just outright massive crime.
Definitely a defining moment for Vietnam. A lesson written in fire, as you put it earlier.
The question is, has the lesson truly been learned? And will it lead to a genuinely more transparent, predictable market?
Or one that operates under the shadow of potential crackdowns, where fear plays a larger role? That's the multi-billion-dollar question, I suppose.
We really want to know what you think. Listening to this, what stands out? Do you see a necessary purge or more of a power play with potentially chilling consequences? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments.
Yeah, we'd be interested to hear different perspectives on this.
And if you found this conversation gripping, maybe a little terrifying, but insightful, please hit that like button. And definitely subscribe to Meridian for more stories like this, digging into the events shaping our world.
Your support helps us keep doing this.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay curious.
If you want more no-nonsense stories about power, money, and the systems behind them, subscribe to Meridian channel.